So tonight we're looking more critically at gold, its crucial role in Ghana's economy. The IMF's media review of Ghana's economy had a whole section on gold. And they say a few things. Ghana's gold production. Gold has become the dominant driver of Ghana's external position. They show some very interesting charts where they say that the precious metal has long been the country's most important export, but the sharp increase in gold prices coupled with the reduction in smuggling and increase in production has meant that gold now accounts for more than half of the total exports from just a fifth in 2021. They also tell us that Ghana is Africa's leading gold producer and one of the most important global producers of gold. And then they also discuss large-scale and small-scale mining. I'm going to speak to Engineer Ken Ashigbey. Engineer Dr. Ken Ashigbey is the Chief Executive of the Ghana Chamber of Mines. He's joining me in the studio to reflect on year-end 2025 gold performance. Engineer, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Kwaku.
It's good to have you. How are you doing?
Could be better, if we did not have, our waters all polluted and all of that, it could be better. But I think it's great to be a Ghanaian.
Wonderful. I also have the Director of Research and Analysis and Finance at the Chamber of Mines, Christopher Nyarko. Welcome, Chris, to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben.
I know you brought a laptop with plenty diagrams, but before I show what you have, let me tell the world what I have. So this is part of the IMF report. So they're showing that gold has become very, very important. In fact, the last time we checked, it's about 60-something% of our export revenue. 63. This used to be just about 20% in 2021. So people want to know what is driving this, and I'll let you explain this. But I just wanted to show this to start us off. The IMF says that the precious metal has become one of the most important factors driving Ghana. The corresponding surge in its gold export value led to a drastic improvement in government's current account balance, rapid exchange rate appreciation, and improved debt sustainability. So the gold story is actually a good story, but we want to understand from your perspective what is driving this. So gentlemen, take me to the slide I want to start with, some top lines, all right? So walk me through this, Chris. These are like the gold at a glance.
Correct.
What is going on here?
Okay. So Ben, thank you. 2025 was a seminal year for a number of reasons. As far as the mining sector is concerned. Yeah. One, our output hit almost 6 million ounces, and that's about the largest we have seen in our records. And it was very significant also for the fact that small scale overtook large scale mining for the very first time.
They were neck and neck for a few years, and now they've overtaken.
Correctly.
Wonderful.
This is the very first time we are seeing this in more than 100 years of mining in the country, and it has a lot of implications on the revenue side, on governance perspective as well, and even for decent employment opportunities. It has a lot of implications on that dimension as well. And in terms of export receipts, we're also seeing quite a bit of a jump in our export receipts, going all the way to around 21.3 billion USD. Of course, this has a lot of implications on our balance of payments, on the stability, flow through to inflation, and all the macroeconomic indicators that follow afterwards. And more importantly, again, is the contrast between the growth in production and how that translates into fiscal revenue, into taxes. So of the 21.32 billion that we report as export earnings, maybe gold will give you close to about 95% of this. This export earnings also includes diamonds, manganese, and bauxite. But out of this 95% or so of that will be gold. If you take the gold amount, 52% of that, or almost 53% of that, is attributable to the small scale sector. But the figure we're reporting here as 24.2 reflects what the large scale mining sector pays to the state. So you generally find out that even though there's a growth in export receipts or even in revenue from the sector, it will not translate into a commensurate growth in government receipts, mainly because the small scale sector largely, if I'll put it very bluntly, is not a tax-paying sector for a number of reasons, which I'm going to come up to. And of course, the growth in the output also translates into growth in your GDP. The sector's contribution to GDP is also going to go up as a result of that. And then there is a cost. You are seeing a growth in our cost of producing an ounce of gold. So the AISC stands for all-in sustaining cost. Is the benchmark we use in measuring the cost the cost of producing an ounce of gold. And exploration spending generally also refers to or gives you an indication of the pipeline of projects that are going to come. Mining is one that you need to replace the ore that you are taking. It's a finite resource. As you mine, the volume of material that you have available to mine will be depleting. The only way you can extend your production is to continue to invest. So the quantum of funds that we put on exploration, or amount of money we spend on exploration, is an indicator of our pipeline of production.
So let me just pick the last column.
Correct.
Your gold forecast for 2026 shows that we're going to go higher.
Correct.
From 5.9 to 6.1 to 6.7.
Correct.
So in a sense, even though not everything is right, there will be more gold production this year than there was last year.
That's our forecast.
With a caveat. All right.
Yes.
Now, I want you to move to the next slide where you talk about the global context. Is what is happening in Ghana unique to Ghana, or has it been driven by global development?
Okay. So just before we move to that, there's a slide there's a figure where we talk about how much we have spent in country, which for us is an important.
The $7 billion.
Dollars. So it's showing you that of our members' revenue that they realize. When I say the chamber's members, not all large-scale mining members belong to the chamber, but of our members, about that amount of money, about 7 billion, was spent in country, and that translates into almost around 78% of their total mineral revenue. So again, just buttressing the fact that a lot of the money realized is spent in Ghana on a number of variables that we're explaining later on.
Good.
And the developments that you are seeing in Ghana is not unique to Ghana, actually. It's a global phenomenon. Across most of the mining jurisdictions, you're going to find out that most of the countries are recording a growth in output for a number of reasons. For one, the price of gold. We don't determine it in Ghana. We're all price takers, and a number of variables that will drive it. So, for instance, the conflict in the Middle East, the U.S. Israel war with Iran has implications on the gold price. One, it signals that perhaps there's going to be a squeeze on crude oil. We're going to have a bit of challenges within that area as far as transportation is concerned. If we're not careful, it translates into inflation. If inflation comes in, then it means that central banks would have to hike their interest rate to be able to bring inflation down. And all of that means that the global economy is not going to do well. So most investors would then look for a safe haven asset to be able to put their money in there. And that would drive demand for gold. So typically that leads to what we call the investment demand for gold, where investors are looking for safe haven, so they'll put their monies in there as well. In the last few years, we've seen central banks buying a lot of gold, largely starting from the ban that was put on Russia by the US, the sanctions that were put on Russia by the US when they invaded Ukraine. It meant that their fiscal assets or their monetary assets in the global financial market were sort of encumbered. So it sent a lot of signals to central banks to look for other alternative assets that they could put their monies in that could not be touched by some of these sanctions. And that sort of sparked the demand for gold as a reserve asset by most central banks.
So the record ETF inflows reinforce gold's influence as a safe haven.
Correct.
Hence, in your next chart, you show that of the 4 drivers of gold demand, the investment demand is the most important.
It's the most important. It continues to be the biggest source of demand. So,
which has led to a price increase.
Correct. So generally, we break demand into about 4 different categories. There's the investment demand, that the fundamentals are driven by safe haven considerations. Mm-hmm. There's the technology demand, where depending on the material or the product that you are using. So for instance, the transistors or the chips that we use these days for computing purposes, a lot of the transistors are made from gold. So if there's a lot of demand for these chips, you find out that gold demand also goes up. So that's the technology demand. Then there's the jewelry that we typically wear. I mean, of course, our women ourselves, we all wear it as well. So that's the jewelry demand for gold as well. And then there is also gold that is used by the central bank.
That's official demand.
That's what official demand as well.
So if you look at this chart, the investment demand is the only side that has gone up in 2025.
Correct.
Which suggests that even the demand from the investment side could have suppressed the demand or availability of gold for other sectors.
Exactly. So what we typically say is that although there was a decline in other segments, because of the rise in the investment demand, it sort of offset the declines that you saw across board. So on a year-on-year basis, if you look at it on a holistic perspective,
Yeah.
you find that the demand in total increased year-on-year, even though all the other three declined.
Okay.
For other
So you said
reasons.
something that gold performance in terms of our output has been extraordinary,
Correct.
almost 6 billion.
Correct.
And gold
6 million.
6 million ounces.
Correct.
And gold's contribution to our foreign exchange has also gone up.
Correct.
So there's a volumes and a value story here.
Correct.
On the volume side, you will say that we are producing more.
Correct.
And on the value side, the price has gone up. So
Correct.
gold has become more important. Now, is Ghana unique in Africa? Or would say that if you look at what is happening within the world, Africa is becoming more important for global gold? I want you to talk a bit about that.
Okay. So Africa, of course, it's very important as far as the global mining space is concerned. One, we continue to be the largest producer of gold.
Africa is the largest producer of gold
globally.
Oh, really?
Yeah, globally. So if you look at the
Okay.
chart, I think it puts us to around
Is it the blue, 27%?
Yeah,
27%.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
that's
28%.
correct. So that's Africa as far as our gold production is concerned. And if you look within Africa, of course, Ghana is the largest producer of gold on the continent. I think it's been since.
So in the pie chart on the right, Ghana has 17.5%.
Correct.
This is 2025.
It's 2025.
Wow.
Correct.
Yes.
Almost double the South Africa
Yes.
of 9%.
Correct.
So
When did Ghana become number one?
in the year that, of course, we will see the year that there was a moratorium on all forms of small scale mining. That should have been when the
22.
no, Ekufado's first term, I think 2018, if I'm
18.
correct.
Okay.
2018 was when we
2018.
became Africa's largest producer.
Yeah.
And we've continued since.
We there was a year South Africa overtook us. I think 2019 or 2020 thereabout. But since then, we've reclaimed that position.
Wonderful. So Ghana is number one, South Africa number two.
Correct.
Who's number three? I
Then
think
there
Burkina.
should be Burkina,
Burkina.
Cote d'Ivoire,
Burkina.
Mali. They are generally our peers as far as production is concerned.
All right. Now, in terms of global production, where does Ghana rank?
We are number 6. We are number 6 now, right after Peru. So globally, China, Russia, Australia, Canada, Peru, then Ghana comes in, and then United States follow. Last year, Ghana overtook the US, but traditionally we've always been number 7.
Wow.
But last year, for a number of reasons within the Nevada area, where I mean, it's one of the areas or the provinces that provide a lot of gold as far as the US market is concerned. Last year, they ran into a number of technical issues, so production for the country as a whole dropped. And of course, given the dynamics in Ghana, we saw Ghana displacing the United States.
So in the whole world, China is the number one producer of gold,
Undefeated, undisputed. I mean,
followed by Russia.
Followed by Russia. Even depending on the kind of the source of your data, there's always some tension between Russia, China, and Australia. I mean, in terms of who is the largest producer. If you check Russian sources, they will attribute it to Russia. If you check China sources as well, China will also attribute it to China. So what we tend to do generally is to look for an independent empire, which in our case is always metals focus. And then that's
So
what
China,
source it from.
so
Yeah.
that's 385 what?
tons.
Tons.
And then Russia is number 2,
Number 2.
Australia number 3, Canada number 4, Peru 5, and Ghana is number 6.
Correct.
More than US, Mexico. Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, it also appears that 2025 was a unique year for Ghana's production.
Correct.
What is driving that? Because you have these charts where for 2025, for the top 10 producing countries, Ghana produced more than everybody.
Correct. So this graph is showing
Guys, the next one.
the next one. This graph is showing change in production.
Yes.
And change in production is like just the growth in production. We need to break Ghana's production into 2 segments because there are 2 segments of the sector. There's the large scale and then there's a small scale. Traditionally, the large scale sector does around just shy of around 3 million. We never get to that 3 million mark. We struggled a bit. And small scale mining traditionally has done anything shy of 2 million. But in last year, we saw a big jump in the small scale sector's output, growing from well over 1.8 million to close to 3 million ounces of gold. At the same time, the large scale mining sector's output was largely flat. It was a slight decline, but largely flat. So the jump that we are seeing as far as Ghana's output is concerned is attributable to the small scale sector. Indeed, when we were checking the literature and comparing small scale sector gold production in terms of country production, Peru generally is always the largest producer, But Ghana overtook Peru even last year, making Ghana the largest gold producer as far as the ASM sector is concerned. We did close to 100 tons.
Artisanal and small-scale mining.
As far as close to about 100 tons. And you look at the size of Peru as a country, you compare that to Ghana, it tells you the amount of output that we got from the small-scale sector 2025.
So Ken, from the strategic perspective as CEO of the chamber, are you worried that now small-scale mining has overtaken large-scale in our gold production, gold being our most important metal? Is that a concern for you?
Well, generally not the fact that the small scale ASM sector has overtaken. I think the first thing you would want to look at is the fact that your large scale sector is not growing, it's declining. And then the second thing you also then would want to look at is the fact that the thing that will drive your growth is your exploration revenue. And if you're doing if you're doing the most gold in Africa, and then you look at the spend for exploration in Africa, and you're doing less than 10%, then the worry then you then tend to have is that even your decline of 9%, if you're not careful, what is going to happen is that you will further decline in terms of your large-scale sector. And again, when you then consider that for you, when it comes to environmental stewardship, your small-scale sector is devastating your country. And the sector that is doing a lot of the responsible mining and then providing the responsible, the sustainable jobs might get into a decline, then you're worried. Then you would also juxtapose that to some of the policy decisions that we've taken. Again, when you look at the fact that when you look at the issues of cost, for example, that cost jump that you're looking at is a cost jump that is unique to the large scale sector. It's not your small scale sector. And so then you start getting worried that if all of these are going to happen, then what are the things that you need to do to ensure that you continue to grow? Because one of the critical things this data also tells us is that, for the small scale sector, they don't explore. So it's only the gold that they find around that they deal with. And so once they finish that, there's no gold again for them to be able to, so they'll move to another area and all of that. So the tendency for your small scale sector to go from that particular high to almost an abrupt end is very high. The place that you would want to be able to grow is, your large scale sector. That would also drive along responsible and artisanal small scale sector. So the worry is more for the fact that the large scale sector has declined, and then also the fact that the leading factors that would lead you to growth, bring you back to growth, are not pointing in the right direction.
I want to pause there because he made a point that the large-scale mining companies pay all the taxes and the small-scale mining companies don't. But I think you need to admit that maybe the 2025 figure has become obvious because of two things. The gold board's arrival has now officially documented what the small-scale miners were producing. So they probably had more gold being produced than you, but we never knew until gold board came. And then number two, the fact that I think 2025, the government decided to remove the 1.5% withholding tax on small-scale mining, which means that it encouraged them to present what they were doing, which means that the taxation and the lack of official gold buyer was underreporting what they were producing long ago. Would you agree with that?
Not entirely.
Okay.
I think there's a slide where we show a trend analysis of the small scale sector's output growth. And you're right.
13.
Yes, slide 13.
Slide 13. The small scale sector is a very unique sector for a number of reasons. And when you're analyzing it, you need to understand the context proper. So just allow me to provide that context.
Go ahead.
In most reports, if you look at the EITI reports on Ghana, for instance, we've always assumed that the official level of production that we sort of report, an equivalent amount of that is also smuggled. So it's a known fact. So if you record, like in 2023, if you did around 1.89 or 1.9 million ounces, you try to multiply that by 2 to give you an idea of how much the actual production would look like. But starting from, I think, 2023, 2024, thereabout, we saw the government come in with what then was called the Domestic Gold Purchase Program. And the program had two components. There was one that the Bank of Ghana was buying gold from the large-scale mining sector, there's a component that they were also buying gold from the small scale sector. So of course the Bank of Ghana then went through, I think it was then PMMC, and then there were two other aggregators that the Bank of Ghana was working with. And at the same time, MEF, the Minerals Income Investment Fund, was also buying gold at the same time. So we created a domestic market for gold, which is something we never had. So just within that period, we created a domestic market for gold. And that suddenly sort of brought all the gold that the small-scale miners were producing, most of them at least.
It will also then reduce the incentive to smuggle. Because somebody is officially buying.
Correct.
But then, you see, my point is that we lost, when you smuggle gold, you lose everything from it. So even though we are not getting the 1.5% tax, the fact that that gold is officially purchased supports our reserves, and we have a record of it, is good enough as a first stage.
Correct.
The next stage will be obviously paying commensurate tax.
But it's good, not enough. It's good.
No, I'm saying that
it's a starting point.
I'm giving I'm making that, because his original point was that even though small scale miners produce more than half of our gold, almost all the taxes is paid by you guys.
Yeah.
Large scale mining sector.
Yes, and I was trying to explain that that could be true because in the past there was a lot of smuggling, and they had to remove the tax to discourage people from smuggling and bring in gold board to make. And now you've explained that now they're actually officially buying the gold.
There's a local market for.
But
gold.
there's a critique of you guys, which I'll read to you from the IMF, and I'll let you deal with it when we come back. Because even though you've painted a solid picture of what the large scale mining sector is doing, the fund believes that you guys should be doing more. Yes, and I'll read it to you.
Yes, it'll be good.
This is the point of view. We are discussing the gold story. I call it the good, the bad, and the galamsey. We're discussing all that today on the point of view with friends from the Chamber of Mines. Stay with us.